All right, thank you all for allowing me to be here today. We've had some great speakers. It's not even fair that I have to get up here and follow Dr. Burgess. That's just not even right. I'm going to do my best, though. So I am Jessica Garcia from Meg's House. I'm the prevention specialist. I am not running for the South Carolina Superintendent of Education, thank goodness. I think those places are rightfully owned already. I'm going to tell you all a little bit about Meg's House, our mission, what we do, if you're not fully informed of everything that we do. We provide direct services for those experiencing domestic violence. We serve women and children as well as men. A lot of times people don't know that we do serve men as well. We have a shelter for those that are fleeing their home. We bring their children in as well. We keep the men separately, obviously, for obvious reasons. We also have a transitional housing program. Once the women and the children or the men leave that shelter and they're ready to start establishing roots again in their lives, we provide transitional housing and a program for them as well. We also have a housing program for the chronically homeless with disabilities, and we have permanent supportive housing for those individuals. As we get into a little bit about what is domestic violence is defined as a pattern of abusive behaviors that's used to control or maintain control of an intimate partner. This can be physical abuse, mental and emotional abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, and we're even starting to see some cyber abuse. And Meg's House has, for years and years, been doing a great job of, after these things happen, providing services for these families. But in 2019, we started talking about the fact that domestic violence is no longer a problem that happens behind closed doors. Domestic violence is a community issue that creates cycles of trauma that we continue to see, and we need to stop those cycles. It also creates an enormous economic burden in our county and in our city. So we sat down and the directors and the board said, well, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to move upstream and try to stop domestic violence before it happens? And that's whenever we created the idea of the prevention program. And of course, they said, well, Jessica, you're very loud and outspoken about the fact that we need this, so who's going to create it? So that's what I got the honor of being asked to make this prevention program and create it and establish it in our community from the ground up. So the first question that I asked myself is, well, where do we start? How do we prevent something so huge and so enormous? Where do we start? And the answer that I came up with was as early as possible. We get in these schools and we start at preschool age. We start teaching them social emotional skills. How do they regulate their emotions? How do we give them words where they can actually describe their emotions? They don't have to only act it out, but they can talk about it. They can tell us how they feel. We start teaching them interpersonal play, how to use breathing techniques to calm themselves down. As we move into elementary school, we start talking about bullying. Bullying is a huge prevalent issue. I see it every day in my profession. And bullying is one of our first signs that we do not know how to handle our emotions and how to interact with another person while we are feeling negative emotions. So we start teaching anti-bullying. We start also teaching them how to be upstanders. So we're not only teaching people, well, how do you not be bullied, but we start targeting those people that we see may be prone to be a person that bullies. So we're not only trying to target the victim and how do you not be bullied, but how do we not allow bullies to be created in our schools? I teach upstander trainings. So how do you stand up to what you see? How do you go and get help for what you're seeing if you do see another child being bullied? We all start also in elementary school start talking about healthy relationships, healthy friendships. What does a healthy friendship look like? Well, child B won't let me play with any other kid. He's my best friend, but if I play with anybody else, he gets upset at me. Well, we need to teach that child, well, that's not what a healthy friendship looks like. Maybe that's not the best friendship for you. And then we need to go to that other child and try to figure out, well, why? Why do they have these issues? What are they seeing at home? Why are they not wanting this friend to play with anyone else but them? As we get into middle school, we continue to talk about bullying, continue to grow on that upstander training. But that's when we also start talking about dating norms. Whether we want to believe it or not, our middle school kids are dating. They are in relationships. So instead of just living in the naivety, we're going to get ahead of the cycle. We're going to start talking to them about how to be in healthy relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like? So many of these kids that are dating, they don't see healthy relationships at home. They don't have healthy norms. So we're going to go in there, we're going to talk to them and teach them what it's supposed to look like. As we do this, we're going to talk to the counselors in those schools and the teachers in those schools, because I can guarantee you, if we talk to those students about what a healthy relationship looks like and they're not seeing it at home, they're going to talk about it. And the teachers and the counselors need to know how to respond, where to go. If a student confides in them and says, well, this is what I see at home, or this is what's happening to me, they need to know immediately what to do, where to go, and what their policy says about it. As we get into high school, that's when we really start talking about dating violence. What does a violent relationship look like? What does stalking look like? What is a breakup supposed to look like? These students don't know. Well, he's continuously calling me. I told him not to. Every day whenever I get out of school, he's waiting outside of my last class. They need to know when is this not normal, and where do you go for help? In the school systems, I've been working with the counselors, and we now have a policy happening where they have different colored slips. They have a slip for bullying, they have a slip for dating violence, because it's hard to talk about that. Those kids, they're experiencing it, but they don't want to talk about it. That's a hard topic to speak on. So they can go to their counselor, they can get a yellow slip, fill it out, put it under the door, and that teacher knows they need to call that student out, and they can begin that conversation. You gave me a yellow slip, you're being bullied. Let's talk about it. Instead of them having to go and break that silence on their own, meeting them where they're at if they're not willing to talk about it. I'm working with Lander in the colleges, working with the fraternities and sororities. They have to have so many hours of education hours, so we're using that as leverage to be able to talk to them about these hard to talk about topics. We're also working with campus organizations. I'm a part of the Title IX here at Lander, so we talk about how do we create healthy policies surrounding this topic. And we also start talking about independent dating, red flags, when to get out of these relationships, because what we're wanting to do is stop these relationships before children come into the picture, marriage comes into the picture, things that are going to make it hard to leave the relationship that they need to leave. We're working a lot in the community with policy work. So going into large industries, large corporations, and making sure that they have policies in place when an employee comes to them and say, the reason I've been missing work is because I'm experiencing domestic violence at home. Do they lose their job? Is the policy different for them in their absences? How do we support them? Do you have an EAP for your employees at work? If so, are your employees educated on those programs? And just making sure that if that person comes and confides in them, that they know where to turn, who to send them to, and what their next step should be. And we know that this is huge. This is a huge task. I feel the daunting weight of it every single day. But we know that it's a longitudinal view. And our hopes is that in 15 years, when we have our next generation of adults, they have been getting this education since preschool age. We've created a foundation. They've been hearing it from the time that they were children, and that they've been building on it their whole entire times through school. So will I see a change in 3 years? Will we? No. But hopefully in 15, 20 years, we've got grown adults that this information has been built in them, that they've been hearing the resounding words of healthy relationships and what it's supposed to look like to love another person healthy. So we have been getting started despite the fact that we've been living through a pandemic. I've talked about a little of the things that we've done, but here's some things that we've done on the Lander campus. We've had a These Hands Don't Hurt campaign where students came and they signed documents saying that they would not use their hands to hurt those that they love. We had Crazy Socks, which was a bullying campaign, and we gave away crazy socks so that when somebody said, why are you wearing those socks? It gave them an out to say, oh, well, I'm doing this because today's Bullying Awareness Day. And I don't stand for bullying. We also did Denim Day there at Lander. I've been working at the STARS 2014 Center. Phenomenal students, phenomenal kids that go to that program. We're doing an evidence-based curriculum called Safe Dates, and they love it. It's not even hard to talk to these kids about it. It's like when you open that door, they love to actually be able to get it out and talk about these things. And we've seen great work there. We're also, I did an upstander training at Community Initiatives. They have an after-school program called Safe Haven, and those are elementary and middle school kids, and they did a 5-week intensive upstander training on how to be upstanders to bullying, and they did phenomenal work. In the school systems, I do bulletin boards. I talked a little bit about working with the counselors. I also, through the pandemic, did video learning objectives and sent the videos over, and the teachers played the videos and did the activities with the students. We did in elementary school and middle school anti-bullying, and in the high school we did healthy relationships, and they were able to touch thousands of students. And then also in the school systems, we're continuing to work with them, and I actually just had a meeting at the District 50 for their annual board retreat. And we are working to create a program over the summer, and I'm going to be training all of the SROs with the school system so that they can then provide this anti-bullying training to the teachers and to the students. And that will give a way for these SROs to have personal relationships with these students and and these teachers outside of just when it's time to discipline. That they see these officers and they have they care about me relationship with those officers, so that when things do come up, they know that they can go and they can talk about what's going on with these SROs. So we have high hopes. That's it for me. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Jessica, thank you very much. I'm going to exercise executive privilege, and as chair, I'll ask the first question.
Sure.
What you have just presented here in terms of getting ahead of the problem is critical. Do you feel that social emotional learning should be something taught as part of a curriculum in our schools rather than as after-school programs or volunteer weekend programs? Do you think it should be more part of reading, writing, arithmetic, and living life as part of our core curriculum?
100%. I think just as Dr. Burgess said, you can't teach a child if you can't control a child. And you can't control a child if you don't understand what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And giving them that language that they are able to understand their emotions, regulate their emotions, and talk about what they're feeling, then we can meet them where they are. We can start to say, okay, these are the problems that they're working through. And they're not going to be able to learn if they can't handle what's happening inside. They're going to be focused on the feelings before they're focused on learning. And I think that the teachers need to be able to know where they're at, know what the struggles that they're going through, so that they can then get them back into a positive state of mind so that they can focus on furthering their education.
Thank you. Any other questions? We do have one over here.
Hi, Jessica. I haven't had a chance to meet you directly, but I'm Cherry Brown. I also work at the Synergy Counseling Center.
Okay.
So we'll get a chance to meet.
Yes.
I noticed you were saying that you spoke of Lander, the Teen Center, and the Community Initiative. Is this only in the Greenwood area? Is it reaching out to the McCormick, Abbeville?
We don't serve Abbeville, but we do serve McCormick, Edgefield, and Saluda. Okay. And so right now we're trying to establish that so that when we go to the McCormick, Edgefield, and Saluda areas, that we can say, this is what we're doing. Okay. This is what we've seen. Will you allow us to do it here? So we have been using Greenwood as such a guinea pig, so to speak, but we do hope to include all of our service areas.
Okay, thank you. And also the Piedmont Technical College, since I did not hear about that, I serve on the area commission, so I'm very concerned that we all have access to information that's vital to our community.
Absolutely, and I'm actually in Rotary with Dr. Rivers, and I've communicated with her about it, and we are on the fast track to trying to get there as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have one last one. Where did the name Meg's House come from?
That's our service area. So Meg's is McCormick, Edgefield, Greenwood, and Saluda.
I never realized that.
Yeah, I didn't either until
I thought there was a lady named Meg that the house was built from.
Hey, that's a better story. We'll take it. We love Meg.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.